good to see everybody again, to see your faces this morning. Welcome. And we welcome anyone who is joining us for the first time today. I recognized a lot of people's faces from last week and from other experiences, and it's just so good to get together today. And Sylvia, thanks for all of your help and encouragement in offering this series. Let's see a couple of things. Today is Veterans Day. Just wanted to acknowledge Veterans Day and give thanks for all of our veterans who have served our country and helped work for the benefit of the world. So we acknowledge and give thanks for our veterans today. It's also a day off for school. So Judy and I had 4 little grandkids running around here this morning, but fortunately they've gone somewhere else, so it's nice and quiet around here, so I can focus in on this class. The other thing I was thinking weather-wise today, I'm in Tacoma. It's really foggy and rainy, and it's a good day to be on Zoom, to do some mindful tea drinking or coffee drinking, and maybe to take a nap, whatever you can fit into your day today. It's that kind of day that we often get in November. The other thing I wanted to say is that I like to keep these Zoom classes quite informal. If you need to go take a break or you need to go somewhere else, or if you fall asleep, whatever happens, that's just perfectly fine. So just feel right at home. You're in your own living room. I'm in my room, and we can just relax and enjoy this time together. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of meditation practice, maybe about 5 minutes to settle in, just to practice what we're learning and also your own practices that you're familiar with. I just wanted to say, how many of you get Richard Rohr's daily emails? Do we have any Richard Rohr fans out there? Looks like a few. Well, great, great. I'm a big Richard Rohr fan, and coincidentally, his series this week is on Buddhist Christian contemplative dialogue. And he's writing about what Christians can learn from Buddhists about contemplative prayer and meditation. So it made me think we're pretty smart doing this class right now if Richard Rohr is talking about the same thing. That's a pretty good affirmation. I'm going to put a screen share up just briefly. Well, this is the quote that I started with last week, and I just love it. And I'm going to read it and kind of plant it into our minds again as we have some silent prayer time. But it says, "This place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you." Just wondering what kind of thoughts and feelings that quote from Hafez brings up for you today. This place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you. And so before we enter into silence, I just want to ask a few reflection questions. What drew you to take this class on meditation and contemplative prayer? Why are you here? What are you longing for or yearning for? And how and where is God calling you at this particular point in your life? So with those questions, let's settle into about 5 minutes of silent meditation or prayer. I'd invite you to settle into your chair, get nice and comfortable. Whatever posture is comfortable for you. You can close your eyes or have them gently open and cast down. and become aware of your breathing. The gentle inflow and outflow of your breath. And when your mind drifts off into some narrative or train of thought, just gently let go of those thoughts and return back to your breath or your sacred word. Well, when you're ready, you can open your eyes if you had your eyes closed, and we can orient back in our rooms and to the computer screens. It's good to always settle in with a little silent meditation and contemplative prayer any time of day, but especially in the middle of the day. It's a nice way to refresh ourselves. Let's see. I'm going to offer a few thoughts, and then at the end of our time, we'll do another mindfulness meditation practice. But before moving on, I wanted to see, did anybody have a question or a concern or an experience in your meditation contemplative prayer practice since last week? Is anything anybody would like to bring to the group? Something you had a question about, or a thought, or something you experienced during the week? Just want to touch base and kind of see. Okay, good. Sounds like we're all good. We're moving forward. That's great. And it's really good. One of the things that's come to my mind is just how popular meditation and contemplative prayer have become in our world. I mean, there's a real contemplative movement going all over the world now, uh, in different religions and even in secular places. And I think that's really good. And I just wanted to offer maybe three thoughts about that. One, I think meditation and contemplative prayer experiences give people a deeper experience of life, a deeper spiritual experience. And as human beings, we have this longing for a deeper connection and spirituality and connection with God. So I think that's part of it. I think the other thing is just how uh, overstimulated our lives are these days. I mean, there's so much information with the internet. There's so much going on in our lives, stress and strain of the pandemic and other things. And so we need that place that we can return to on a regular basis for stability, for self-care, for peace. And I think that's a big reason that people are turning more and more to these types of practices. And the third one, I think, is that the world is dealing with really serious problems today, very complicated, complex problems. And we think about climate change, the challenges of the climate crisis. We think of racial reckoning. We think of income inequality, and the list goes on and on. And these are big, big issues that can easily wear us down. And I think but part of what's drawing people to these practices is that once again, we need that place of refreshment, that place to listen deeply to our souls and deeply to God, so we can make a deeper, more authentic response in the world to these kinds of issues that are so prevalent. So a person who's drawn to contemplative practice isn't necessarily escaping from the world. We're all very familiar with that balance between contemplation and action. And even though I'm encouraging people in their contemplative lives, we all have our responsibilities, our active lives. And so it's that ongoing balance of contemplation and action. But the activist will quickly burn out if they don't have some kind of spiritual resource within to draw from on a regular basis. And contemplation can help provide that for people. So those are just a couple of my thoughts on this phenomena, and it's just really good to be part of this growing worldwide community of people who are drawn to the contemplative path. Now, coming to Buddhism and Christian contemplative traditions, and kind of reflecting about some of the gifts and values of these traditions, I came up with three words that start with S that both contemplative traditions value greatly. And those three words are silence, the experience of silence. The second is the experience of stillness, becoming still. And the third is the experience of solitude, that our souls are nurtured and we meet God in solitude. So this mixture of silence, coming to stillness, and having some time for solitude are three of the values and places where deeper forms of prayer can take place, such as centering prayer. So another way I like to think about this is that silence, stillness, and solitude are doorways. They are portals that help us come in to the divine presence. God is with us all the time, isn't God? In God we live and have and move and have our being. God doesn't leave us, we leave God. And so what silence, stillness, and solitude provide are doorways or avenues for us to wake up to our ongoing connection with God, that our beings are connected with God's being. It's interesting that the word Buddha means the one who is awake, the one who woke up. The Buddha awakened to his enlightened state. He saw the truth of reality through his enlightenment experience. And so the contemplative path is our own journey into awakening, going through these portals into an experience of the divine presence. So if I can, I'm going to put that screen share back up. Sylvia, I may need some more help on this. We'll see what happens. Oh, it's there. Is it there? Okay, great. I'm going to scroll down here. Can you see that, everybody? Is it there? Okay, this is the famous Bible verse, Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Isn't that beautiful and isn't that true? If we can just have a moment of stillness, a moment of quiet, we can sense God's presence. And look at the stillness of that water. It beautifully reflects the forest, the sky, and the mountain, doesn't it? And so this experience of stillness can be a doorway through which we can go to connect with God. So be still and know that I am God. That's like the motto scripture verse for contemplative prayer. Now, this is another one. It's a story from the desert fathers and mothers, the Abbas and the Ammas, not the mamas and the papas. Well, I guess it could be the mamas and the papas, but the Abbas and the Ammas. But this is a very well-known story from the desert fathers and mothers. But it says, a brother came to Cetus to visit Abba Moses and asked him for a word. The old man said to him, go sit in your cell, and your cell will teach you everything. Isn't that amazing? The tradition in the desert spirituality with that a younger or less experienced person would go visit one of the Abbas or Ammas and ask for a word of guidance. And Abba Moses said, go sit in your cell, and your cell will teach you everything. So if we had a little more time, I'd open this up for conversation. It's a wonderful Zen koan to ponder. How can sitting in solitude and silence in our cells teach us everything? I'd encourage us all to try it or to continue to try it. That place of silence, stillness, and solitude is a place where God can speak to us. And the picture there is a picture of my cell. It's where I'm at right now. It's in my prayer office room, and that's my chair. That's where I sit, where I go do centering prayer twice a day. And it's a very important thing to me. It's become my home, and it's taught me a lot. Just hanging out in here in quiet and in silence as God speaks through contemplative practice. And then the final quote that I wanted to put up here is that this is a famous quote from Saint John of the Cross, a Spanish mystic, one of the great Christian mystics. He wrote, "Silence is God's first language." Just think about that a little bit. How does that work? How does God speak to us in silence? And that's God's first language. That's how God first tries to communicate with us. So we can take from this piece of wisdom that having some silence in our lives opens the door for God to speak to us. So we have silence, we have stillness, and we have the experience of solitude. So wanted to hold those values up for all of us today. And does anybody have any queries or thoughts about your experience or your thoughts about silence, stillness, and solitude? Does that work in your life? Yes, please. Yeah, tell us your name and yeah.
I'm Diane Richards. I just have a question. We have group meditations every once in a while at Mary and Peace or whatever it is in Bellevue. And I'm just thinking about the difference. That's how do you have solitude when you're with a group of people? I find that challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you have any idea on that, Diane, or is maybe we just have to let go of solitude?
Well, I just think practice maybe of stopping to think, stop thinking, stop, I don't know. Yeah. Just practicing it maybe and to become more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll just comment on that I think contemplative practice is both individual and solitude. But if we can practice in groups, it's equally good or even better that we get a lot of energy and support for people when we pray and meditate in groups. So it's not an either or. I think both and is the best way to go. But you know that verse that Jesus taught, when you pray, go into your inner room and shut the door, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you if you pray. So you can kind of take that inner room with you even when you're sitting with a group in a circle doing your contemplative practice together. So there's that still somewhat of a feeling of solitude. Yeah, thank you, Diane. Great. Carolyn,
Thank you.
Please.
I was thinking along the same lines and wondering, my experience of Tai Chi is that there's a strength, kind of an energy when you're doing it all together that doesn't exist when you do it alone. And it's palpable.
Yeah. Thank you, Carolyn. Very good point. Yeah. Doing contemplative practice in groups or whatever it is very powerful. Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't trying to say that we need to be in solitude all the time. I was just saying some solitude is good and can help bring us into a closer feeling of experience of God's presence. Okay, well, good. We'll continue to reflect on those sayings, those quotes, and incorporate these things into our lives. Let's see, how are we doing on time? It's 12 o'clock. I always have like 3 times the stuff that I want to talk about when we do these classes, so we'll have to do it again. But one of the things that I wanted to mention from the Buddhist perspective that I think is really important that Christian contemplatives can learn from Buddhism, and that's just the importance and value of practice. Practicing your contemplative prayer, practicing our meditation. Buddhism is a practice-based religion. It's trial and error. It's go try this and see how it works. It's not particularly dogmatic at all. And so the idea of having a regular practice that you can return to on a regular basis, hopefully daily, is life transforming. I grew up in the church, and a huge part of my formation as an Episcopalian, as a Christian, what had to do with belief. Christianity historically has tended to be a belief-centered religion. It's the Nicene Creed, it's the Catechism, it's Bible study, it's having the correct beliefs and getting those beliefs just right has been a huge part of the Christian tradition. Fortunately, we're kind of lessening that a little, lightening up on that a little bit. But Buddhism is very practical and emphasizes practice. And I wanted to just tell two stories before we do some practice here, is that there's a Zen master who's still alive today. Let me look at his name. I probably will butcher it, but his name's Kosho Uchiyama Roshi, and very famous Zen teacher in Japan. Wrote probably the best book on Zen called Opening the Hand of Thought, a really, really good book. But he retired from being the abbot of the monastery there in Japan a few years ago, and he'd been in the monastery like for 60 years. And his monks, as he was retiring, said, Roshi, how did you get to the point where you are in your life? How did you become such a holy man? And he thought about it for a moment, and he said, well, I sat in meditation for 10 years. I practiced meditation for 10 more years. I sat for 10 more years. I sat for 10 years, and I sat for 10 more years again. And so it had to do with just returning to his cushion and opening his mind to the present moment over and over and over, that he became the holy man that he is today. So that shows the value of regular practice. The other story is a Zen story too. It comes from the 12th century Zen teacher Dogen, who was considered the founder of Soto Zen. But Dogen, he was young, and he wanted to have an enlightenment experience. And so he went from Japan and traveled all over China to see these different teachers. And he wanted to experience enlightenment. And he did this for a long time, for years. But he didn't experience enlightenment when he was seeing all of these great teachers and practicing. And so when Dogen came home, he came to the conclusion that enlightenment isn't some big flash of light that happens to us. That enlightenment is practice. Enlightenment is returning to practice on a regular basis. And so you kind of let go of this need or desire to have these big experiences and just regularly return over and over and over again on a daily basis. So I've found that very encouraging. And as I've meditated with Buddhists over the last few years, I've just been really encouraged and supported to make contemplative prayer my daily, regular practice. And the more we do it, the more we open to the work of the Holy Spirit in our lives. So just wanted to underscore that. So I'm sure all of you can see that there's value to regular practice. It isn't easy to achieve, but working on regular daily practice is really worth the effort. Yeah, part of our problems are where we become human doings and we don't have any time or little time just to be. So learning just to be in God's presence is transforming. So thank you. Well, let's do a little practice to end up. If I can get the screen share up, I'm going to put the words to Thich Nhat Hanh's go to mindfulness meditation practice. Let me see if I can get it up here. Oh, there it is. Let's see. Can you see that? Oh, wow. Well, I'm getting better, Sylvia. Okay, well, this is Thich Nhat Hanh, who's one of my spiritual heroes, often uses little phrases to go along with the breath. So this would be a form of breath prayer. So on the in breath, the line is breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. So let's try that for 5 or 6 minutes, about 6 minutes as we conclude our class here today. I'm going to leave it up on the screen share. And this was the first mindfulness meditation I ever learned, and it's still a go-to for me. So settle in to your meditation, contemplative prayer posture. Let's be mindful of our body and breath for the next 5 minutes. When you're ready, you can open your eyes if you had your eyes closed and orient back here to your room and our computer screen. So wonderful just to sit in silence and prayer for 5 minutes. It's interesting, it's pouring down rain here in Tacoma really hard, and I just sat there and listened to the raindrops. It was going down. Don't even have my window open, but it was just so comforting just to be still and listen to the rain. Well, a couple of things. Sylvia sent out the mindful tea drinking exercise. I'd encourage you to give that a try. I'm going to say more about coffee and tea drinking at another session, but give mindful tea drinking a try. It's a wonderful experience. And in the Buddhist mindfulness world, they talk about there are two hands of mindfulness, and one hand is the hand of attention or awareness, cultivating present moment awareness. And that's what we focused on these first two sessions. But next week, we'll go to the other hand, and that's considered the cool hand of mindfulness. But the warm hand of mindfulness is loving kindness practice. And I love loving kindness practice. It's life-changing, life transforming. And so next week we'll do some loving kindness meditation together, which is, I think, can really translate beautifully into a Christian's prayer life and can be just a wonderful life-changing practice. So I think that might be it for today. And one thing I'll mention, I'm also considering, or I'm going to offer an introduction to meditation contemplative prayer class free on Zoom during Advent. And I'm going to send Sylvia some information on that. And if you're interested in kind of just getting started on the contemplative journey, I'd love for you to join the class. It would just be wonderful. So